Okay, I can't even write this video. This is going to be a tough one. Today we need to talk about Denpa Ningen Tackle, Electro Humanoid Wave Person Tackle. I guess that ends up being a pretty deep conversation in who was she, why did she die, what did she live for, and how she's remembered. And beyond that, there's a bigger conversation about what is a woman, what is a female superhero, can women be superheroes, and how are they treated in Japan, where sexism is like a whole thing that goes on and off throughout the years, and sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, and yeah, I guess that's what we're going to get into today. And eventually I'm going to tie it all back into episode 2 of Tojima Wants to Be a Kamen Rider, which is the introduction of the new tackle, which is also scandalous because it's really dividing the fan base about, oh, it's too stupid, oh, it's too corny, or oh, women just shouldn't be superheroes again, which is the whole conversation from the 70s all over again.
この番組はヨランのスポンサーのお提供でお送りします。
So tokusatsu was a mostly male-driven genre since its inception, since the 60s. 70s was really when the toku boom started, and there were, of course, girls who would watch tokusatsu shows with their brothers and fathers and wanted to get involved in all that. I think it's worth mentioning that the first major female superhero was Yuko Minami, the female Ultraman and Ultraman Ace. Weird character. Long story short, Ultraman Ace needed a man and a woman cooperating together to become Ultraman, which was a major departure from previously just a man switch places with Ultraman. Overall, Yuko Minami is kind of a weird character in Ultraman Ace. She serves as mostly the main character's pseudo-girlfriend, and she doesn't really have a lot of like sway in the plots or like say in like what happens when they fuse together into Ultraman. Ultimately, though, she does get written off the show in a really ham-fisted and corny-ass way. It's revealed out of nowhere that she's a female alien and she comes from the moon and then she gets banished back to the moon and she goes back to the moon and never participates in battle ever again. It's kind of like a tribute to the old like story of Princess Kaguya, but then like immediately after she's replaced on the show with this very annoying child. So it really ruins the vibe of Ultraman Ace because Ultraman Ace is originally about this man and woman cooperating, and then it's just like this man who is constantly being annoyed by like this miserable little child that's filling the role his departed girlfriend used to fill. It's really not the same show once they get rid of Yuko. Since it's been 50 years now, removing Yuko from Ultraman Ace has gone down in history as a bad move. While it seems like simple sexism to kick her off the show, it's gone down in history infamously with a lot of people blaming kind of everyone and pointing fingers in every direction. Some people blame the network for the show's falling ratings. Other people blame the show's writers who were infamously fired and replaced at a very frequent rate, and who complained about not being sure how to write for Yuko because there had never been a female superhero before. And probably the most insane excuse I've heard is that some people actually blame the fans, and more specifically the children watching the show, because while any fun-loving kid in Japan can just flex his arms and pretend to be Ultraman, to be Ultraman Ace, you need to have a girl going alongside you because of the whole binary fusion thing. So I guess there were a bunch of lonely, single 7-year-olds out there who were upset that they couldn't get girls to play with them. Okay, yeah, sure, blame the kids. Why not? Anyway, eventually Kamen Rider kept going, and eventually for the 5th and final classic show of Kamen Rider, they did Kamen Rider Stronger, which really just starts with 2 Kamen Riders. There is Kamen Rider Stronger, obviously, but then there's also Denpa Ningen Tackle, the mysterious woman known as Tackle. So bringing it back, even though Kamen Rider has always kind of worked as being a solitude hero, Kamen Rider has also worked well with partners. Obviously, in the first series, we had the double Riders, and then in V3, they introduced Rider Man, who was another evil Kamen Rider, but with like not as much technology as the normal Kamen Rider. Rider Man mostly used gadgets and machine attachments to fight, unlike most of the other Kamen Riders who were full-blown cyborgs. I think Rider Man was a cyborg, but still he used machine attachments. Anyway, Rider Man ended up dying in like the second to last episode of Kamen Rider V3, which led to Kamen Rider V3 declaring that Rider Man was the unofficial 4th Kamen Rider. So then Kamen Rider X is the 3rd series, 5th Kamen Rider, and then X doesn't have a partner, and then we go on to Amazon. Amazon is a full feral Kamen Rider, but he does have an unofficial comedy partner in the form of the mole Beastman, who is like an evil kaijin of the day who switches sides and then becomes a comedy relief character who mostly just is around and is weird and doesn't really participate in that many battles. Despite all that, though, the mole is ultimately killed in episode 20 of Kamen Rider Amazon because it just seems like Kamen Rider cannot keep his friends alive. But yeah, back to Stronger. Stronger full-on brings Tackle in the first episode, and Tackle is majorly different. The first episode really sets up Tackle more than it sets up Kamen Rider Stronger. Stronger is kind of just there, whereas Tackle gets fully established as like being in the middle of like the Black Satan explosion, following leads, and doing a lot more detective work than Kamen Rider ever did. It's like Tackle is kind of like this detective trying to like figure out what's going on and put a stop to it, whereas Kamen Rider's just throwing down punches and beating everyone to death as he walks through Japan. As I rewatched the first episode of Kamen Rider Stronger today, I'm reminded that Tackle wasn't even like initially presented as Stronger's partner. She's presented as more of his like rival and his friend. They're officially classified as partners, but it's not like she's like a straight up sidekick like kind of Rider Man was, kind of like the Mole Man was. Tackle and Stronger are presented from the start as equals. But anyway, long story short, the thing that makes Tackle famous more than anything else is that Tackle dies. Tackle dies in like the last 10 episodes of Kamen Rider Stronger, and her death is really, really strange in terms of Kamen Rider, because the thing is that with almost all the other writers, even Rider Man who died on screen, they all have this immortality in that whenever like you think about Kamen Rider, whenever they do like a crossover, the old Kamen Riders always come back. But Tackle doesn't, because Tackle's death is like this finite like point in time, and it's really traumatizing, and a lot of people have like tried to make sense of it over the years, because from what I've heard, that children who watched Tackle die in the 70s were straight up traumatized, that was their self-insert character and they saw her die. The other thing of it was that there was this massive debate about the way V3 classified Rider Man as the fourth Kamen Rider. Many people said that Stronger should have classified Tackle as the eighth Kamen Rider, and there's a whole debate about whether or not that was just. The Kamen Rider Spirits manga actually gets into this debate and has a whole like discussion on why Shigeru didn't do it. And in Shigeru's words in that manga, apparently he didn't do it was because Tackle was fighting to be a human being, and if he did declare her a Kamen Rider after the fact, after everything she had done, it really would have like deflated her sacrifice. So by not declaring her a Kamen Rider, that was his mercy upon her, or rather his like way of remembering her as just not Yuriko, the normal girl, and not Tackle, who fought and died beside him. I mean, anyway, it's overall hard to say about what really was the intention of killing off Tackle, whether it was just fridging a girl to make the boy stronger, whether it was a justified death. But nonetheless, it has gone down as a major trauma point in tokusatsu history, because a lot of people did look up to Tackle, and a lot of people did think she was cute and wonderful. And yeah, revisiting Stronger today for this video, like I realized that she did have like a lot of spunk. She was a badass woman, and it's really, really just depressing to think of the way she went out. The other thing that's sad about the way she went out is in Kamen Rider Stronger episode 30, she didn't have to die. Like, she dies of slow acting poison, and then she finally kills herself with a suicide attack. And really, all of it could have been avoided if she had just been more open with Stronger, but she didn't want to come off as weak, and she didn't want to impede Stronger, nor did she want the situation with them fighting Black Satan to get any worse. She wanted to end it on her terms, and she did. It just, she died in the end. All right, anyway, let's watch episode 2 of Tojima Once Become Kamen Rider, which is all about the new Tackle, Tackle number 2, in some ways, the revenge of Tackle. Oh yeah, and I should probably mention that the fandom is majorly divided on this ep, with many people taking lots of wild stances here. Some people saying that women just shouldn't be in Toku. Some people mad that women were ever in Toku, but again, Tackle is a character from 1975. If we can't even have a discussion about something that happened 50 years ago, you're fucked, man. I don't know. Meanwhile, like, the other thing is, like, Tojima as a Kamen Rider has been hitting this like weird like middle ground between being an action show and a comedy show. The manga was clearly a comedy gag manga, but the show is trying to take it a little bit more serious. Like, adding in a lot of the Kamen Rider level melodrama. But then like this episode, there's a lot of jokes about just Tackle being sexy and Tackle being a woman and Tackle having no sense of shame. And that's a whole like thing that we'll get into as we go through the episode. Some of the jokes land, some of them don't. I think it comes down to a cultural thing between Japan and America. All right, anyway, here's the episode. Let me watch it. All right, so we're introduced to Yuriko Okada, who is an English teacher or a literature teacher. And we're also introduced to this nerdy kid who has a major crush on her. The nerdy kid having a major crush on her is also like a kind of pain point for a lot of people. The kid's just being kind of used to push a lot of fan service in the show, and some of it's working, some of it's not. I don't think I love the fact that they're closing up on her ass and using like VTuber reality TV sounds, but like otherwise, like I can just respect the material for being funny enough. So yeah, anyway, we got this horn dog kid named Asano-kun who's got the hots for Yuriko. I don't know, that happens, right? Like I remember when I was in high school, there would be kids who would have feelings for certain teachers that kind of way, even though they're a teacher. I don't think the show's being super inappropriate with it, but I would say that some of the jokes maybe aren't hitting as well as they should, and then there's a discussion about why make those jokes at all if they're just like falling flat. There is a pretty funny joke early on where Asano imagines that Yuriko is this like refined woman who like goes home and plays her piano and then like goes to an art museum and like buys a high-class cup of tea. But then in reality, she's like this like straight up like roid raging like gym obsessed Kamen Rider wannabe Tackle lady, and that's just hilarious. I don't know, that joke worked for me. All right, so this episode also has the opening theme. The opening theme has a couple of spoilers in it. We see Rider Man and another Kamen Rider guy who just looks like kind of Ichimonji or Kazumi Shiro. He's got that kind of look to him. I want to guess he's based off one of the Toku actors, but I can't put a finger on it exactly. We got some Shocker Combat Man in the opening, which is kind of cool. We'll get back to that at the end of the episode. All right, so yeah, the proper start of the episode gets full on into the mantle of Tackle. Okay, I can see fan service-wise, there is a lot of unnecessary boob bouncing. Not a deal breaker for me, but yeah, maybe they overdid a little. Anyway, then we go into a flashback that Yuriko grew up with this Kamen Rider Songer superfan guy as her dad. And yeah, that's happened. I feel like I've seen this happen. Like the scenario they play out for Yuriko's origin is honestly not that unusual. It's just that she took it to this extreme because it's this show. So we get another great recreation of the opening to Kamen Rider Stronger. And it seems that Yuriko and her dad end up watching the first 2 episodes of Stronger together, at least something like that. I do like that the show points out that the original Tackle could transform instantly just in a blink of an eye, because that ends up coming up later in this show as another badly formed joke. And then, yeah, we just get a lot of like loving fan service to the original Tackle, fighting Black Satin with her original theme song and everything. Her original special attack, the electric wave throw, which was kind of a tokusatsu trick. Basically, she would make an arm movement and the bad guys would jump around. The implication being there that she was like shooting electricity out of her arms. I do find it charming as hell that because Stronger was made in 1975 and there were no special effects, this entire attack is just fully imaginary, but everyone treats it like it's real. But like straight up, she's just moving her arms and nothing's happening and everyone's like freaking out about it. I love that so much about this show. We'll get back to that later. But yeah, so Yuriko, the little girl, decides to dedicate herself to being Tackle, and her dad completely eggs her on because he's a Stronger super fan like that. There's also a one-line cameo by the original Kamen Rider V3, and they actually got his voice actor to come out of retirement for this. It's a pretty crazy cameo, so that's funny. But yeah, original Yuriko apparently has been practicing doing the electric throw. And in her case, she actually did it as like a real wrestling throw. Anyway, eventually she knocks over some more of the tapes and she ends up finding Kamen Rider Stronger episode 30, which her dad never showed her because that's the one where Tackle dies. So yeah, I've watched this episode too. Tackle ends up getting killed by the evil Dr. Kate, who sprays her with poison that gives her like 2 days to live. And then she ultimately ends up using the Ultra Cyclone attack to kill Dr. Kate, but the Ultra Cyclone attack kills her after she uses it, which horrifies Yuriko because, again, that was her like superhero, and she dies in the arms of Stronger as Tachibana Tobe watches. And yeah, I want to say this anime does get across at how horrible Tackle's death was, and it plays it really well. Like, this is a very loving tribute to these old episodes, and I can't, like, state enough how freaking good this show is just for like, emphasizing what this moment meant to people. Like, it's so bad that, like, Yuriko falls into, like, the ocean of despair in her own mind. And then later her dad finds her drowning in a puddle because this is a gag comedy. Okay, that joke maybe works. I don't know, that was kind of funny. Anyway, her dad nurses her back to health, and she asks why Tackle had to die, and her dad honestly, like, just straight up takes Kamen Rider Stronger as, like, a real, like, happening, and, like, basically just conveys to Yuriko that this all really happened, which I think might have kind of fucked with her head a little bit, because, again, for this family, like, Kamen Rider Stronger was factual events, and the dad was so, like, distraught that he named Yuriko after Yuriko. But he also did that from a place of great love and, like, fandom, so it's, like, it's complicated, but man, this is such a great tribute to Tackle, and that's what I love about this episode. Like, you can kind of see the love on screen, and that's fucking beautiful. But yeah, then he, like, ups the ante by just straight up turning his daughter into Tackle, for better or worse. And it's really cute when he does it with the little kid with, like, the sunglasses and the pot, but obviously, like, you see where this goes from point A to point B, but it's a sweet moment at first. Like, I love the cut from her declaring as a child she's going to be Tackle for the rest of her life to fast forward, she's 24 years old, and that is her life. She also declares herself as Nidaime Tackle, which is, like, the second Tackle, or, like, the great second Tackle. It's a good way of, like, declaring her, like, title. Anyway, then we go back to the Yakuza gang, who's, like, trying to rob another convenience store. A lot of people caught on by this episode that Yakuza Man is dressed like Kiryu Kazuma from the Yakuza games. Yakuza Man does give some backstory that he became a Yakuza because the only thing he could do in his life was fighting, which kind of goes back to the speech Tojima made in episode 1. And then we go to a weird moment where Asano confesses to Yuriko outside of a store and really, like, confesses that he's madly in love with her. Yuriko has a slightly flustered reaction to this, but luckily the shocker guys show up at just this moment and really, like, deflate the situation. Although then there's another gag where she's, like, scoping out the shocker robbers while the, like, love-confessing boy keeps, like, distracting her. That's another okay gag. I think maybe the fact that this episode had more gags than the first episode did is hitting people a little bit weirder. I think the first episode was a little bit more ambiguous and depressing, so the comedy didn't hit as hard. But yeah, this episode is full, mostly comedic, but with some strong reverence for the original Tackle and the whole story of how Tackle became Tackle 2. Anyway, Tojima shows up to fight the Shocker guys, but they don't recognize him without the Kamen Rider mask, so he, like, takes a second to transform again. There is something kind of funny and ironic that Tojima and Yakuza Man just wanted to fight each other at the end of the day. But then Yuriko full on loses it, realizing that Tojima is about to steal the Shocker robbers again. And I do love the way she gets, like, really absurd about it. Like, she calls them her prey and a bunch of things. Then, yeah, there's the big fan service moment where she changes into her underwear in the streets, then takes out her costume from her bag and changes into Tackle. There was some further debate online because Tackle's shown to be a little bit thick, but she's a female wrestler kind of bodybuilder in the show. And there were also some Puritans who were mad that this Tackle shows her, like, ears and her shoulders, unlike the original, so yeah, if that's a problem for you, again, I don't know. But yeah, so Tackle shows up, she punches out Tojima, and then she has her dramatic scene in front of the Shocker guys. I do love the way she introduces herself by saying that Tackle didn't die in Japanese. The subs have it slightly mistranslated as Tackle lives. That's cool, but it's definitely didn't die. Anyway, then she goes into doing her electromagnetic throws, which in this case are just straight up heavy wrestling suplexes. It is pretty fucking badass that to compete with Tojima being this, like, crazy karate dude in the woods, Tackle is basically like this full-on unrestrained female professional wrestler. And she, of course, gives her superhero secret identity over to Asano, and now I guess they have, like, some sort of weird relationship. They're not dating, but she's kind of, I guess, using him to, at the very least, protect her identity. Anyway, she makes a scene, punches out the shocker robbers, but she also runs away without properly arresting them. So they get back up and they kind of leave. The police show up, the shocker guys leave, and Tojima watches Tako run off into the night, excited once again that she's also living her dream, finally becoming a Kamen Rider. The next day, Okada is super happy that she made the news as being Tako and she's semi-famous, and she laughs to herself that now she has a secret identity. So the first episode had a mini MCU kind of post-credits tease, but this one has a significantly longer one. It's almost 5 minutes long, and I fucking love this scene. If you shut the episode off here, you're honestly missing like kind of the best material in the episode. So after that, they go back to Yakuza Man's house, and he made up this like monster mask so he could fully become Yakuza Man. And he declares that he is the Kaijin of the three guys. So then they go to rob another convenience store, and inside this convenience store, there's like a YouTuber who I guess is like a mukbang YouTuber who just like eats to get all like as fat as possible. Wasn't there a guy that did this for real, and then he was very like divisive because he like almost ate himself to death? Anyway, so yeah, the shocker guys end up noticing the mukbang guy and say he's eating too many snacks as the shocker robbers go to town robbing the convenience store. But since he's YouTubing and live streaming the whole thing, he's getting incredible amounts of hits because I guess a lot of people just want to see what's going on and like stop the crime, like regardless of what the hell this guy is streaming. But yeah, this guy feels like this is his golden moment to like finally like make it big on like YouTube. So he decides he's going to film as long as possible. Now, meanwhile, Tojima and Okada both see this is happening, so they rush out to fight the situation. And yeah, Yuriko fighting alongside Kamen Rider as rivals is exactly like the way Tackle worked in the original Kamen Rider Stronger, or at least in the first episode. But yeah, so then Yakuza Man ends up getting stopped by this rando with a scar in his eye, who is like identified as a vigilante customer. And he tells the Yakuza guys to stop what they're doing, but then he turns into a Shocker Combat Man. And they even play the old Shocker theme song from the original 70s Kamen Rider, and it's amazing. I love this song, and I've never heard it been used as like a mic drop like that. Like, not only that, like they literally use the lyrics to like accentuate what's going on. Like, this is one of the sickest anime endings I've ever seen just because of the way they use the song. So yeah, it ends on this massive cliffhanger that, despite up to now this being a scenario where the Kamen Rider show was just a TV show, for whatever reason, Shocker is a real entity in this universe, which kind of changes the entire show. Up to now, I thought this would just be like a story about like Tojima finding a reason to live when he was on the verge of suicide. But with the introduction of Shocker into the show, it's now like full-blown sci-fi. It's a full-blown sequel to Kamen Rider of what if Shocker was real and Kamen Rider wasn't. And that in itself is just effing crazy. So yeah, from here on out, we're in for a crazy ride, you guys, but I'm so effing happy with this show. This, I want to say, stands as like the best episode of the show released thus far. I've seen 3. 3 is a little bit of a step down, but still very intriguing. But yeah, this is it, guys. This is where we go into go time. All right, yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking. I'll be back with episode 3 shortly. Thank you.